Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a budget planner. Listen, in the last video that I made, the 2020 vision, I talked about how to retain as much of the pound that you earn. So you earn the money, you retain the money, and therefore you then try to grow the money. That is my 3 stages of how to manage money that basically comes into you. And I think one of the most primary factors and things and artifacts that any single one of you needs to have, this is something that I would actually recommend as a mandatory thing, is a budget planner. Now, there's a lot of information out there in terms of how to have a budget planner, what to manage, what to put in there. I personally believe that there's so many different styles and variations. There's no right or wrong answer as long as it gives you an accurate reflection of your current finances and the future that you're trying to go to and achieve. And that for me should be the ultimate goal. So I'm going to show you my budget planner. This is exactly the budget plan that I use. I've developed this over a number of years and tweaked and changed it. I've had it more like, I don't know, complex and complicated, and I've had it a lot simpler, and I feel like I'm at the sweet spot where, you know what, I really like the way I do my budget plan, so I wanted to share it with you, and hopefully if you find value and useful in this, then obviously please take this. If you've got your own one, then absolutely go and use your own one. So if you want to know how to make a budget planner, please like, please comment, please subscribe, help the channel get to 3,000 subscribers, and we can get the world of investing and managing and budgeting your money out to more people in a clear, simple and transparent manner. But first, let's get straight into this. So as you can see here, what you would expect in any budget planner is a list of expenses. So as an example, I put mortgage, council tax, insurance, water, gas, electricity, travel, gym, food, social, miscellaneous such as doing my hair or dry cleaning, credit card, and then 13 and 14 because there could just be random expenses in the course of a month. Obviously in pounds, how much do I spend on each of these things? Now, as a disclaimer, this isn't my actual budget planner. This is just the template. So don't start inferring or reading too much into this. You ain't got the answers. You have not got the answers. This isn't the budget planner. But yeah, let's get back into this. So the reason why the top 3 are in purple is because I personally like to separate what my fixed expenses are and what my variable expenses are. I think for everything that goes out of your account each month, you need to know, do I have to do this every single month, or is this variable? Can this amount flex and change? And I've talked to you guys, I think in the 7 steps for beginners, and I've talked to you in probably the £100 and the £250 video, that once you can start to see what your fixed and variable expenditures are, you can start working out where you can shave money and where you can start actually being a bit more smarter with your money. So I know, for example, my mortgage, council tax and my home insurance is fixed, and you know what, for at least for the course of 1 year as a minimum, this is going to be the price that I have to pay irrespective. But everything else potentially is variable depending on, say, how much I use it or just how much I want to do of that thing on a monthly basis. So there could be a time where actually this month I only spend 500 on food. Cool, now I can actually see what that basically looks like. The squares in green, I just basically color it in green when I've paid that thing for the month. So when that thing is done and I know it's complete and I know I don't have to, like let's say I've done all of the social activities and it's a day before I get paid again, then I just put it in green. And I know that actually the things in white are the only ones that I've got left to pay or come out. So I just basically look at my account and then I manage it from that standpoint as well. Then here, quite simply, is obviously the total addition. This is all of my expenses on a monthly basis. I like to put that in red because obviously it's a figure that's leaving my account, so to speak. Now, what I basically do here is then what is left, what is disposable. So here you can see that as an example, let's say my salary was £3,000 in this context. I spent 1,869 on my expenses. That leaves me quite simply with £1,131 as disposable. And from that disposable, I can then save some money. I can spend it on, you know, Givenchy shoes or whatever. Like, I can do whatever I like with that money. That's completely your choice in terms of what you do. But what I like to do here, this goes back to retaining as much of the pound as possible, is I like to basically work out what that means from a percentage standpoint. So here it's basically this figure divided by my salary and then this figure divided by my salary, and that tells me actually, you know what, Curtis, 60% of your money goes to expenses and you only retain 30% of your money. So you need to work out how you can try and increase the amount that you retain and decrease the amount you spend. So I might look at this and be like, oh, you know what? Where does my money go to? Now I know what my variable costs are. I know that actually, you know what, Curtis, you need to stop eating because you're just eating too much. So maybe next month you go down to 270 for your food budget. Now I know that next month that we go into, which will be January, I'm going to actually spend 54% and retain 45%, which is a massive difference just by changing just one thing. And this is where I find budget planning actually a little bit exciting. And this kind of speaks to the nerd in me, that I think because of the way that I like to learn and absorb things, it helps me just kind of keep abreast. So there's like three types of learners, right? You've got kinetic, auditory, and visual learner. For those that if you're kinesthetic, it means you like to feel and you like to do activities. If you're auditory, you like to listen to things. If you're visual, you like to see. I'm a visual learner, so I like to just see. Actually, if I just move my travel budget down to 240, I like to physically see what that does to my overall budget, and then that helps me learn about what I need to do better and worse of, and what I need to change, and then obviously work that out. So that basically is my income statement almost, and this is what my income, my operating cash flow, and my expenses are. Then I've got my assets and liabilities. So this is what's basically I own and what I owe effectively. Now these are the categories I've got. You can obviously have absolutely any category that you want. So as an example, you might say, so I just put house in there, but that could be, for example, car, or it could be that here, rather than Bitcoin, you might just put, this is P2P lending. It could be whatever you think is your asset at that time. And this is what the current value is. So there are often different people that say, oh, you know what, you need to do a monthly budget planner, you need to do a daily budget planner. The reason why I've got current value is because I check this every couple of times a day, a couple of times a week, I would say. So that way I can just basically look at what the situation is and be like, you know what, all right, cool, the cash doesn't change. I've got 4,000 in cash as an example. I've got an emergency fund, which I'm going to get into and talk a bit more about that in a bit. P2P lending, let's say I've got 3,000 there. Let's say I've got 12,000 in stocks, and let's say I've got 2,000 in my car fund. And let's say this is the stuff in purple is basically assets that I've got, but I consider them illiquid. So when we look about the total figure, G5 to G9, what you can basically see is G9 stops at car. The bits in purple is not calculated. So I want to see that these are my assets, but they're not liquid assets. These aren't things that I can basically go and grab that money if I needed to, if something happened. So I like to see what my illiquid assets are. But here, for example, this could be all your properties, because you might have, I don't know, say £300,000 worth of properties, right? But the reason why I don't do that, I don't put properties in there, it's just that then it makes the pie chart look really silly. So I put more smaller things just to make the pie chart look a little bit more effective. I keep the property separate. But as an example, that shows me that all of my assets equate to 22,000 as an example. And then I just do the same for liabilities. So any credit cards, any loans, anything that's a liability that you spend, that you've got debt on, is basically what I do here. So let's say I've got my Amex card and let's say I owe £900, but on my Barclays card I owe £20,000 as an example. Then obviously it shows me this is all of my assets and this is all of my debt. And here I basically do a debt to equity ratio. So similar to the way you might see a debt to equity ratio for a company, I do the same thing for myself, because I want to see what is my debt to equity ratio. What is the amount I have in assets and equity versus the amount I have in debt. This is again goes into the way that I like to see things from a visual standpoint, and that way then I can start to work out, all right, cool, you know what, I've got quite a bit in cash, but I've got quite a bit in debt. Let's say, for example, let me sell off some stocks. I'm going to take that down from 12,000 to 7,000, and that means then I'm going to take this down to 15,000. And that way you can start to see there's some movement in the debt to equity. Or you can actually then, think about from the money that you get. Let's say that I know I can save 14.21 per month. All 14.21 for the next 3 months is just going to go to clearing off my credit card, and I'm going to leave this the way it is. And then hopefully then if I do that for say 5 months, that works out to be say 7,500 as an example. That then means that this is now 7,500, and then I can see, yeah, you know what, in 5 months time this is my debt to equity ratio. And it's just a visual way for me to see that my debt is going down for whatever reason, and my equities are staying the way it is. In this section here, I like to just see a simple pie chart of everything everything that we've got. Now, remember we spoke about the emergency fund. So we can see now that my emergency fund, as an example, could be 3.7% of all of my total assets. Now, what I've always said, and I've said it in the 7 steps video, in the 100 and 250 pounds video, when you've got an emergency fund, I like to personally aim for an emergency fund of 6 months expenses. That's what I basically maintain. So what that should mean is that this should equal this figure here, my total costs, times 6. Quite simple. So I should aim to have an emergency fund. If this was my actual budget, I should aim to have an emergency fund of 9,474. And that way I can see that, you know what, that should be in my emergency fund. So if, God forbid, I'm made redundant or something happens, I lose my job, or let's say I just have to leave work to look after a sick family member or something along those lines, I know that I can maintain my expenses for a set period of time, that I'm not going to be in complete financial hardship, and I don't have to dip into my stocks or any of my other potential stuff whilst I'm doing that. And that's why I think an emergency fund is really, really important. It's something that even if you don't have 6 months now, one of your goals should be trying to build up that emergency fund over the course of the next year or a couple of years, etc., so that you've got that sitting there. That's my personal thing. Obviously, other people will tell you different, and maybe 6 months is a little bit aggressive. I could understand that. So maybe you might say 3 months, because maybe it'll only take you 3 months to find a new job. But it's just about how much protection and security do you want in the if unforeseen circumstances happen. So that's the reason why I basically do that. And that basically shows you my budget planner as a whole if you are a UK citizen. Now, I've been talking to some of you guys, and some of you guys are really open with your finances, and I know that about 7 people that I've spoken to don't get paid in pounds. Some of you get paid in dollars, some of you get paid in Canadian dollars, some of you get paid in dirhams, some of you guys get paid in euros, but you live in the UK. So you get paid in a different currency and you live in the UK. So I also wanted to do a budget planner for you guys just to show you how I manage a budget planner in that situation. And so this is the version 2. This is basically if you get paid in a different currency than the currency of the country that you live in. And quite simply, I'm not going to go through everything again, but I'm only going to go through the things that slightly change. Here you can see I've duplicated the cost column in both scenarios, from disposable, from costs, and obviously from expenses. I've basically duplicated that here. And the salary figure, I put the dollar figure or the Canadian dollar figure or the dirham figure or the euro figure, whatever the figure you get the money in, and that basically would be the figure that we put here. And then this figure automatically basically responds based off the current exchange rate. So let's say, for example, right now, you know that for every pound is, for every dollar is 0.75 pounds, which basically 75p for every dollar. I put whatever it is in your UK currency to the currency that you've basically put. And then here basically times is that by that figure here, and then it automatically flows through and works that out for you. And so that tells me that, oh, you know what, I pay $600 in rent, and that works out to be £450 in rent. Or I spend a visa that I have to pay every month, I'm just making it up, of $65, sorry, and then that's £48.75, and that way you can work it out. Everything else basically flows through and is exactly the same. Another thing that I've also done on this spreadsheet, which is slightly different, is let's say I know that I want to put a certain amount towards my cash every month and a certain amount towards my stocks every month. So in this example, I want to put 45% of whatever I make to my cash balance, and I want to put 55% of whatever I make, update later, to my stock balance. All I've done is disposable times 45%, disposable times 55%, and that basically shows that, okay, you know what, from whatever is disposable, I need to basically put £1,011 into my cash every month, and I need to put 12,035.85 into my stocks on a monthly basis. So that function has also been added there, but everything else is the same. Debt to equity ratio, what the basic pie chart is in terms of my expenses, the salary is the same, what my liabilities are, whether I've paid for something or not, whether a cost is fixed or variable, what the costs are, what the split between, you know, how much of that pound I retain versus how much of that pound I spend. That all basically is the same. Look, Hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, please like, please comment, please subscribe. This is everything that I talk about: investing like an institution and treating yourself like a company. If you think about a company, you got your profit and loss statement, you got your income statement, your cash flow, you've got your assets and liabilities, and I think that's all basically covered in here. You know, this is like your operating cash flow, your income and your expenditures. This is basically your P&L. This is your assets and liabilities, and this is just a way to, you know, visualize it. So I personally think this is the best way to manage, you know, your money and your budget plan. You might not like what you see, but at least you can see it, and therefore once you can see it, you can therefore make the necessary steps and actions to go and tweak it. And you know, it's very simple to just to move 2 or 3 things, and actually now you just added another 5% to your assets, and removed 5% to your disposable. So you know, it's really good to kind of look at it that way, and therefore you can manage your money effectively. Hope you found this useful. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time with another investment video. Tomorrow I'm going to produce a video on 14 new stocks that are on my watch list. So hopefully you guys will like that. Other than that, take care, have a good evening, and I'll speak to you later. Peace.